We'd just like to introduce David Harper to you. David, I know we weren't going to start with too much of a backstory, but could you just give us a 1 minute bio?
As to why I'm here tonight. So it's got nothing to do with antiques at all. It's to do with a family member, my daughter, who was terribly dark and depressed and found herself in a very terribly devastating place, and really had an effect on me and my wife, the family in general, and nothing could save her. You know, all the doctors tried to save her with tablets, therapy sessions and all of that. Nothing could save her, and she became so depressed that she was suicidal. And then somebody suggested that she looked at Jesus, which was a bit of a shock to us, to be honest. You know, I wasn't a Christian, I came from a cultural kind of Christian background. And she went on a journey, and I watched this journey unfold over a period of 15 months. And very quickly in this journey, I saw changes in her from darkness to light. And that bright light just got brighter and brighter. And until one Christmas in 2024, well, Christmas of 2024, I realized finally, after watching her skeptically for 15 months, thinking this is a made-up story I'd been told. I think it is. Christianity, Buddhism, they're all the same. It's made up. I realized something was real about this thing because she was so fundamentally changed. And she was full of joy and life and light. And she told me it was Jesus. So I thought then I'd better find out who this person is of Jesus. I'd known him all my life, or of him, didn't even know whether he was a real person at all. So I went on a journey of discovery, and I ruthlessly investigated. As a layman, I'm no professional theologian, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just a normal person who saw somebody's life transformed from death to light, and I mean that genuinely. She wanted to die. And so I had to find out what it was. And I started a journey, which I thought would take 2 hours of research. It took me 11 months. And I don't think, telling you something you don't know, but I discovered the truth of it. And it changed my life. Yeah. But at the beginning of the book, I was a skeptic, an agnostic. And I think that's where we're going to start.
Yes.
I'm sure some of you here are the same as I was, skeptical, unsure, confused about all of this. But what I found was that the biggest questions in life are not that complicated to answer, which was a real shock to me. So that's why I'm here, to share with you my journey from someone who didn't know God at all, had no understanding of him, to someone whose life has been changed by God.
That's great. And I think that is important to mention. You are an ordinary guy.
Totally, yeah.
You're a well-known ordinary guy.
For second-hand items.
Yes.
That's it.
Very good with second-hand items.
Well, all I do is I do my job on telly.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're not a scientist.
I'm not.
You're not educated in the ways of science.
I'm not.
The journey you went on, anyone can go on.
Literally.
The things you found out are freely available to find out.
They are, and I say that, I must always say that, but the book has become a bestseller, which I'm eternally grateful for, but I take no credit for, because the information in the book I found, and it is freely available. I just went on a journey, and it's just a sequence of events, of things that I found which are real, provable, by the way. There is nothing in this book that cannot be proven. If you don't believe me, Google it. Go and read some academic stuff, and I give links throughout the book all over the place. So it's not me. It's just information that I found. I compiled it, put it in a book, put it on Amazon, and it worked.
So we're going to go on the journey together.
Yeah.
Over the next, I was going to say 6 weeks, but it's 12 weeks, but 6 sessions. So we're going to be once a fortnight over the next 12 weeks. Yes. So 6
He's
sessions.
a good pastor, but he's not very good with maths.
I am.
Yeah.
terrible with maths. There was 500 people in here on Sunday. No. So you'd be more than welcome to do that journey with us if you find it interesting over the next 12 weeks. And we're really going to go through your book chapter by chapter. There's 12 chapters in the book. We're going to try and cover the contents of 2 chapters each night. And really the start of your book is how the journey began. And what was your starting point when you thought, right, okay, I am going to investigate.
Yeah.
I'm going to find out if this is true.
Yeah.
How do you start that?
Yeah, well, I didn't know how. Nobody had taught me how to start it. So I thought to myself, well, I better go right to the beginnings of time, where the Christians say it all began. So I wanted to look at what the Christians say about the beginnings of the universe, but to contrast what the Christians say, because I didn't want to be, biasly led down a Christian path, because I was very skeptical about Christians at the time. No offense to many of you. So I wanted the opposite view. Now, I'd been reading Stoic philosophy as an amateur Stoic philosopher for several years, and I found it fascinating, but I couldn't compare Christianity to Stoic philosophy because it wasn't different enough.
Yeah.
The big difference between, the two major difference thought processes, whatever, is Christianity and atheism.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I'll compare what the Christians say to what the atheists say. And now I knew a lot of atheists, a lot of my family members are atheists, or think they are. They think they're atheists because they've never looked at any of this. And I'd never considered myself an atheist. I always naturally felt there must be something beyond what we understand. So that's where I started. I wanted to know the origins of the universe from a Christian perspective and an atheist perspective. And I'd always thought, when thinking about the universe growing up, that it was a topic too big for my brain. How did the universe begin? And people would tell me that there are all sorts of theories. Well, there are not all sorts of theories. I discovered very quickly there was only 2 theories for the origins of the universe. The Christian theory, or any theist theory, that it was created by a mind, an intelligence, or the atheist theory that it created itself out of nothing.
So no third option there.
There's no third option. The universe made itself for no reason, out of nothing, with no design, or an intelligence made the universe. And when you look into those 2 theories, there's only one that makes any logical sense. Now, if anyone can explain to me how anything, never mind a universe, but anything, can be made out of nothing, then I'd love to hear it. Because there is no academic scientist on the planet that can explain to you how this can happen. And when you think of nothing, if we emptied this room of people and chairs, there would be something in here. There'd be light and particles and air. Where the universe was born, there was nothing. And so it's a proven fact, scientific fact, because I wanted science, by the way. I wanted science, I wanted history, I want evidence. I didn't want Christian testimonials telling me this stuff. I didn't want just to believe in what I believed was a blind faith. I wanted proof. So there is no scientific proof.
So has science always said that the universe had a beginning?
No, science once believed that the universe was eternal. So Albert Einstein believed that the universe was eternal. It was the only explainable, unexplainable thing. The only explainable, eternal thing. And science, prior to the Big Bang theory of a point of beginning, were very happy accepting that the universe was eternal. They couldn't explain how it was made because it's eternal. It had always been there.
But then the Big Bang theory came along. So I guess there was some resistance to that within science.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the scientists at the time, in fact, quite liked the Big Bang theory because it was something that excited them. Albert Einstein didn't like the idea of it too much, but then he got on board. And there was some reluctance because, in fact, with the theory that the universe had always existed, it discounted God. Because if the universe was always there, had always been there, and would always be there, You didn't need a creator of the universe. The problem came with the theory, the Big Bang theory, because if the universe had a beginning, then you must explain the beginning. And this is the law of causation, which is a scientific law. It's a legal law, it's a civil law, and it's a law that we all live by. There's a reason why every single one of you are here tonight. This is the law of causation. You're sat here because somebody told you about this event and you decided to come along. You can trace it to a point. You can trace who built this building using the law of causation. Everything must have an explanation. But with the universe, this was a shock to some scientists because they knew they had to explain the origins of the universe. And the only thing that they could come up with if they were atheists was that the universe made itself for no reason out of nothing.
Right. No reason.
No reason,
nothing.
No design, no intelligence, out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And nobody can explain to you or I how that is feasible. And so it didn't take me very long to come to the logical decision, rational decision, that makes no sense whatsoever. The only rational reason for the universe being in existence was that a mind and intelligence created the universe.
Okay, that must have been quite a realization to come to.
Yeah, I think it was something that I think I'd always known. It just made sense. It didn't take me long to get there. But again, if anyone can explain to me how the universe made itself by accident, I'd be very interested to know. But I've dug and dug and dug, and there isn't a scientist on the planet that can explain it. They just say it happened. They cannot yet explain it.
And that's, I guess, also the case. There's the origin of the universe, but also the origin, and we won't get into
life
too much yet, but the origin of life.
The origin of life, yeah. You can have all sorts of theories when you look at evolution, which they are just theories. Yeah. And a theory born in 1859, a very different scientific world. In 1859, we were riding around on penny farthings and Queen Victoria was on the throne.
Which we will get to in a few weeks. Yeah. But life itself must also have spontaneously started to exist.
That's right. And again, there's no explanation for that. Yeah. You can believe in evolution. I don't, and I explain why I don't in the book. But a lot of people do. But they can come up with theories of how these things happen. They can't prove it, but they cannot explain how the first life occurred.
The very first life.
No life to life. Nobody, no scientist can explain to you how life can be made out of non-life. And this is the theory of evolution, that somehow in a pond of water, life made itself by accident with no design, with no creator, no intelligence, out of non-living matter, like rocks, like water, like chemicals. It's never been seen before. Scientists can't replicate it. Hundreds of millions of dollars are invested in the theory of evolution, very little in the theory of creation, by the way. And it's no surprise to anyone that scientists, no matter how many hundreds of millions of dollars you give them, they cannot make anything out of nothing.
Yeah.
They can't do it. And they can't make life out of non-living things.
Yes, never
They can't do it.
It's never happened.
And if ever in the distant future, a scientist discovers how to make life out of non-living matter, then all that proves is that you need to be a super scientist to make life out of non-living matter. Therefore, in the beginning, it took a super scientist, and that super scientist must then only be God.
Yes, it would take a super intelligence.
It would take a super intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
You make an example in your book of a Rolex watch.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, the universe, when you look at it, it is supremely complicated. It is like a moving watch part, but on a scale which is unimaginable. So when you look at the stars at night time, you can look at the two nearest stars to one another. It would take you 4 million years to fly in a jumbo jet between the two nearest stars. If you don't believe me, Google it. It'll take you billions of years to move across the universe that you can see. So that's the scale of it. But it is all ordered. I know it's hard. I know I can see your face. It's hard to comprehend. In fact, I don't think there is a human that can comprehend it. The size is intergalactic, literally. But it's all purposefully designed. The distance, the sun to earth, the moon, gravity, dark matter, dark energy, all of these invisible, supernatural, they are supernatural, they can't be explained by science, forces that hold the universe together, keep the universe moving. Without any one of these fundamental parts to the universe, it would break like a watch. So, if you remove a spring from a watch, a battery, a cog, a wheel, it won't work. And the universe is a bit like a watch. And so I say to people, look up at the universe, get a little basic understanding of its complication, and ask yourself, did that make itself by accident? This is the fine-tuning argument for a God. And if you believe it did, then answer me this. If you were wandering around a park one day and you found glistening under a bush a solid gold Rolex watch, diamond encrusted, the kind, wow, madam, you look like you might have one of those. If you found that watch, what would you think? Would you instantly think to yourself, well, that watch must have made itself by accident out of nothing and suddenly appeared here for me to find it? Or would you logically think, no, funnily that I've just found a Rolex watch. Somebody must have lost it. But prior to that, it was made by an intelligent watchmaker. Which makes the most sense? Apply that logic to the universe and it just drops into place. The universe is quite obviously designed mathematically and with physics and chemistry. And you can, again, in the book, I say, there's a chap called Willie Soon. He's a mathematician from a university in America, big name in the States. And he wasn't a Christian, but he did look into Christianity and he studied the universe. And he came to the conclusion that the universe is so mathematically complicated that it could only have been designed by an intelligence. Therefore, there is a God.
And the universe is so clockwork.
Yeah.
It is so perfect in design.
Perfect.
That you can wind the clock back, literally.
Yeah.
You can go back and track the stars and you can see what the sky was like hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, accurately.
Accurately, yeah.
Because it is like clockwork.
It is.
If we took that down, we will come to questions in a moment, but if we took that down, so that's big universe.
Yeah.
Let's take that down just to our planet.
Yeah.
When we're talking about fine-tuning.
Yeah.
How delicate is the balance on the planet?
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Take one element away from the Earth, carbon as an example, and none of us would be alive. No plant would live, no animal would live, nothing. Look at water. I looked at water. I don't know why. One day I thought to myself, how do you make water? I don't know why. And I started looking into water, and it's hydrogen and it's oxygen. And actually, on paper, it's not difficult to make water. And I'd heard people talk about water being transported to Earth on meteorites, and that's how we got our water. So I started looking into it. But I discovered, and again, you can Google it, that humans can make very small amounts of water using hydrogen and oxygen. But it's very expensive, and they can't make it in quantities because making water is like making a hydrogen bomb.
Wow.
How the Earth made it so beautifully balanced, it's impossible to know without blowing itself up. And then I realized or learned that the water I'm drinking now has been in existence since the Big Bang. It's the same water. We have a finite supply of water. It regenerates itself. It's the water recycling, natural recycling. Obviously, it evaporates. The clouds literally clean it. They filter it. They take the salt out of it and they deposit it as drinking water. There is no more water on Earth than the day Earth was formed. Wow. It's the same water that dinosaurs drank. It sounds bonkers. Did anybody know that? No, I didn't know it. And when you read it, you think this is all made up. Google it. It's true. And then, and we won't get onto the Bible yet, but this is before I was looking into the Bible, I discovered, because you talk about the flood and the stories in the Bible, and people say, well, in recent years, scientists said that it was impossible for there to be a flood because there's not enough water on Earth. Well, interestingly, scientists in the last 20 years have discovered that there is a reservoir of water 400 miles below the Earth's mantle. and there is enough water down there to submerge the Earth hundreds of meters deep. 3 times the amount of water inside the Earth than there is on the Earth's surface. So these bits of information just keep on coming, all provable. And then you take gravity, of course, and all of these things, and air, oxygen, the fact that trees filter the stuff we breathe out, we breathe in what they breathe out. You look at a tree canopy, put it against an X-ray of your human lung, they're almost identical. It's just ridiculous. The signs of creation and design are everywhere. So the balance, Luke, is so it's mathematically impossible for this to have happened by accident. And it doesn't take much to get to that point.
Yeah. It's mathematically impossible, even for 90% of what exists to have got there. But the odds of life existing.
Well, the unfathomable, you can't fathom them. Mathematicians can't even come up with that equation. And actually, on the subject of mathematics, you would all agree, I'm sure, and every scientist would agree, that the universe is designed mathematically perfectly. Yeah. It is, and using physics. So ask yourself, where does mathematics come from? Mm. Now, an atheist will tell you that humans devised mathematics. But then you hit them with the fact that if humans devised mathematics, how is it that the universe is designed mathematically perfectly? That doesn't make sense. What makes sense is that mathematics predates humanity. Mm. Physics, it certainly predates humanity, because we employ physics to understand how things work or to make things. But physics was employed in making the universe, which all points to a creator. Mm. So I got to the point very quickly that there is a creator of all things. But I didn't know who he was, of course, at this point. I had no idea at all.
That's a good breaking point there. So I'd like to open us up for questions.
Yes, sir. We've got to chat that.
One there and then one there to start with. Start here and then we'll move back there to...
I was fascinated that you said that when you started your investigation, instead of starting, I suppose, as many people do, with Christianity, you flipped it on its head and you started looking at it from what the people who didn't believe in Christianity would say first. Yeah. And I think that's a very interesting way to approach it, because I suppose you're getting all of their answers and then letting Christianity answer that.
That's right.
Was that profitable for you doing it that way?
I think if anyone's going to go on a similar journey, do it. Search what the atheist viewpoint says about life and creation, and then search what the Christians say and contrast them and see which one makes the most sense. And I think it fast tracks you, because you realise you're not being led with bias information, because you yourself are contrasting it continually.
That's good.
So that's important.
It's interesting that you started there. Yeah. You didn't start within, because you know you're only going to get one argument from within.
That's right. I needed both arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very good.
And I didn't know which way I was going to go. I even say in the book, I didn't know. I wondered which is the better philosophy for life, a Christian philosophy or an atheist philosophy. I didn't know. And I wasn't sure which way I was going to come out of it.
It's quite it's quite a brave journey to go on that. Mm. That you're like, I'm going to follow where the evidence leads me.
Yes.
And not know where that's going to be.
And I had to drop my bias against Christianity, because again, if anyone was in today is in the position where I was kind of biased against Christianity, because I'd been educated, probably subliminally, away from the God of the Bible. I'd been told, certainly by family members, that Christians were a bit dim-witted, to be honest. I know, looking around, I can see that's not true at all. But, ill-educated, illogical people with no sense. And so I had these biases, and I believed that the Bible was nonsense. I believed it was fairy tales. I'd never read the Bible. So don't forget, so I was probably looking back, leaning more to atheism in truth.
I think you said in your book, didn't you, that you thought the Bible really came around with the printing press?
I did.
That's when it found its form.
I did, because, studying history and antiques, I know that the printing press was introduced in about 1450. So I assumed from the year 0 AD to 1450 that the Bible, the New Testament and the Old, but particularly the New Testament, was, an evolution, dare I say it, that people had changed and adapted and added to and flounced up stories until the printing press came along and finally printed the last incarnation. It's a bit like Chinese whispers. Yeah. I felt it was like a Chinese whispers through hundreds of years until the printing press came, and then they printed the final Chinese whisper. Of course, again, this is for another night, but yes, when you dig into the historiography of the New Testament, you can prove very, very quickly that the documents written in the first century are pure, and it is exactly the same story, the same message that has been repeated time and time again until the printing press comes. You can look at documents with 1,000-year time period between them. There may be some mistakes, spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes, whatever, but it is exactly the same story. And again, if you don't believe me, research it yourself. The New Testament, it sounds crazy, is 99.5% pure. That's not saying it's true, but I discovered that the documents written in the first century are 99.5% pure to the documents that you read today.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable. And we can prove it because the New Testament was copied out tens and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of times. And so you can look at copy after copy after copy after copy. They're all the same. They don't change. And if you're copying one, madam, and you're copying one, then somebody will say, well, yours is different to yours, and your mistakes will be picked up. So you can prove that the New Testament is accurate.
Yeah, that's good.
Whether you believe what it says doesn't matter at this point, but I can prove to you very quickly that the docs are accurate.
So I got us on a diversion there. Paul, you had the next question?
Yeah.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Thank you for the book.
Thank you.
Inspiring. Really enjoying
it.
In relation to the Big Bang, just what you've just been talking about there, and that everything known to man was created in a single moment of time.
Yes.
On pages 18 and 19, you've already read part of it, so I'll ignore that. But for those who haven't got the book, I just want to read just a couple of sentences and then ask the question.
Okay.
You say that all of this and much more is referred to as the fine-tuning argument for God, which says that the universe is so finely tuned that it is mathematically and scientifically impossible for all of its constants to have created themselves unintentionally in order and so perfectly balanced for life. This is the scientific argument that points to the universe being designed by an intelligent mind.
Yes.
So now, having stated that,
yes,
my question to you is this. Why do you think it is that so many well-educated people, scientists, professors, teachers, and many, many other people, when looking at what I would say is overwhelming evidence of a creator God, just simply can't accept it?
It's a funny thing, isn't it? One, to put it very simply, they don't want to believe it. And it's quite a new phenomenon, this. The very idea that something can make itself by accident is a new invention, and it was invented in 1859 with Darwin's theory of evolution. But atheist scientists and philosophers at that point and later got this information, and they came to the conclusion, wonderful conclusion for many of them, that their intelligence was greater than any so-called God. And they elevated themselves to God positions, and they could not countenance the very idea of a God. It's a philosophy, it's a religion. Atheists will hate me for saying it, but atheism is a religion. It is a belief system that they live and die by. They just simply reject the idea of God, of a creator, and they come up with all sorts of reasons to do that. And since 1859, as a culture, and I include all Western countries, including America, we have been intentionally educated away from a creator. And I do believe, it's a bit conspiratorial this, I do believe it's a way of controlling us. Because they say that the Bible is written by a man to control man. Well, that's nonsense when you look into it. The Bible is freeing. It gives people courage. So much courage, they die for it. The Bible is banned in 50 countries and more around the world, even today, because it is completely freeing. Those that want to control you do not want you to have a power greater than them. And if you believe in God, in that creator, you realize that there is a power and intelligence greater than yours, than mine, and anyone who controls you. And any government who wants to control you does not want you to believe that. And it does sound a bit conspiratorial, but I assume that's why. And there just are people, and I know them, and they are in my family, that will not listen to what you've just read out. It makes logical, rational sense. They won't have it. They hate the idea of a God. It's as simple as that.
I think that comes down, many people who don't believe in God might call themselves atheists just because they don't believe in God.
And they don't want there to be a God.
Yeah. But actually atheism isn't that you don't believe in God. Atheism is a belief that there isn't a God.
Yes.
It's just as much a faith-based
It's a faith.
system.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
In fact, it actually, madam, you're right. It does require more faith to believe that this glass, if you left a box of air outside for 1,000,000 years, could create itself by accident with no design and no intelligence and no materials. It takes more faith to believe that than there is something more intelligent than us that created everything and us.
Got a question at the front there?
David, I was just thinking, as we've got quite a lot of young people in this evening, and obviously at school and things like that, the agenda is very much Big Bang Theory, scientific proven and things. What was your kind of sort of biggest wow moment in terms of just around creation? What for you really made the penny drop?
I think the things the Big Bang Theory, I'm perfectly happy with, that the universe began at some point. I think the only discussion is, how did it happen, by accident or by a creator? I think very quickly, as I've said, I got to a point of believing that there must only be a creator. But I think I had so many penny dropping moments. It's when I started looking at creation on Earth. Animal life, plant life, our life, the micro-evolution of animals within species, biology, DNA. It is mind-boggling, beyond comprehension. It's nanoscience. You can't look at a human cell under a microscope. And in the book I say, go and Google it. You can see it online.
Yeah.
Recreation images, because they're so small I can't photograph them, but they can recreate the human cell. And we've got 30 trillion of these things running through our bodies, each communicating with one another, and each in perfect format with your DNA number. It's wonderfully mind-boggling. And you look at the cell, it looks like a city landscape. And there is movement, and each and every single thing that you see, which is minuscule, has a purpose. For you to think that that is not designed, to me, is madness. It's quite clearly designed. And so I think creation of the universe was one thing, but it was when I started looking at nature. Wow. And it's given me such an appreciation of nature. And the scientists are clever. They're clever people, and they build fighter planes and all sorts of stuff. The B-2 American bomber, the most expensive bomber ever produced in the world, an incredible bit of kit. You look at that and a peregrine falcon. The B-2 bomber is modelled on the peregrine falcon, the fastest bird in nature, because the design is perfect. They look identical in shape, and the scientists will admit we modelled it on the peregrine falcon. Look at a dragonfly, then a helicopter. Where do you think the scientists got their design from? From nature. And then you have to ask yourself, well, did nature design itself by accident? No, nature's not intelligent. In actual fact, it isn't. It's programmed, quite obviously, and therefore it's quite obviously designed. So multiple penny dropping moments.
And I'm going to stop you on that thread, because that's next time.
Oh, is it?
We're really going to dig into evolution, I think, next time. So.
Sorry.
But we will
Your fault.
We will go.
Yeah.
We will go deeper into that.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole chapter in
It
the book
is.
by itself,
Evolution
isn't it?
is a big one, quite
Yes.
contentious, I've found.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll hit on that one in
Yeah.
a huge amount of depth. But that was a
Okay.
good. That was
Yeah.
a good taster, so you've got to come back next time.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
the rest of that. I see your hand at the back.
I was just curious that when you were doing your research, so we get that there was either everything created itself by accident or there was a creator, but did you look into any other creation theories? Because there's a lot of other pagan religions that had lots of other creation theories. Did you look at any of them?
I did, and I have done over time. But if you think about any of the religions that you might be thinking about, their creation theory all happened within creation, within the universe. Whoever, whatever created the universe didn't create it from within the universe. Do you follow? They come from outside of our known universe, a place that we can quite obviously not comprehend. And so it makes sense that you can discount all creation theories that were made within the universe, so gods of the sun and gods of rivers and all of those things. And when you do look at all of the religions in the world, in truth, there's only Christianity that stands up to any scrutiny. It's only genuinely, I mean, again, if you don't believe me, Google it, but it's the only one with a foundational proof that it makes sense and can be provable.
And we'll dig into that at some point, because when you look at archaeology, for example, it does. But I you cover that later on.
I do, particularly when looking at the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions on this particular subject of creation?
Yeah.
We still,
I know you said you did everything yourself, you worked everything out yourself.
Yeah.
How much influence was your daughter? Obviously, your daughter's remarkable recovery set you off on that trip.
Yeah.
But how much did your daughter influence you at the same time? You must have listened to the things that your daughter taught you about Jesus.
Yes.
So how much of that is involved in it? Or was it purely something you'd worked out yourself by working it out yourself? We go through speaking to our own family about Jesus, not by looking into it ourselves, because we've already took a step of faith and believe it.
Yeah.
So how much did your daughter influence you?
Well, it's interesting because obviously she influenced me greatly because of the changes I saw in her. But in truth, looking back, I didn't accept the changes as real coming from this person, Jesus. It was like I didn't want this faith thing coming from Christians who I'd met throughout my life. And many times when Christians had tried to talk to me about Jesus, they often had a very irritating grin on their faces. And it's joy. Now I know. Finally, I know it. But in the beginning, this is why I went down the scientific route. Science, history, proof, documentations. I didn't want the spiritual side, not in the early days. That came later. So she influenced me hugely. And in the 15 months that I was monitoring her as a born-again Christian, I mean, fully fledged, full-on, absolutely dramatic born-again Christian, as she is today, I know now that Jesus was knocking on my door. Coincidences, call them what you like, things were happening. And, Hetty would say to me, Dad, it's Jesus. I go, yeah, that's great, darling. And I've been looking at science and I'd tell her stuff. And it's funny because her being a born-again Christian and finding Christ through spiritual transformations, funnily enough, she's not massively interested in the beginnings of time, in the theory of evolution, not really, because she got the Jesus thing in her way. My way is one way. I wanted evidence first, and then I got the Jesus thing later, which we'll discuss. But some people are very lucky, and they find Jesus in a moment. I have a friend who went to church once, listened to one testimony, went as an atheist, and came out a born-again Christian. Amen. Absolutely, it happens. God has a fantastic sense of humour. He really does. I do. And it's funny because it is, again, I cover it in the book, but when you do have God in your life, I assure you, you laugh more. You do. Because things are not as important as you once thought they were. There is more to this life than meets the eye, and that's something called eternity. And once you get that, that's a big change.
It is.
Yeah.
We're going to go back a little bit to, there's something you said about the law of, remind me
the law of
phrase.
causation.
The law of causation. When you were looking at the universe, everything has to have a cause.
Everything has to have an answer. Everything. Yeah.
Everything has to have a first cause. Then in your second chapter of the book, you ask the question of, well, in that case, where does God come from?
Yeah. Oof.
Because
Can anybody answer that one?
If everything has to have a cause.
Everything has to have a cause. So applying the law of causation to God. Now, this is a killer. Somebody will say to you, an atheist will say, well, that's great. You believe in God. Where does God come from? And who made God? And I thought it was unanswerable. And before I give you my answer, does anyone else have an answer? It's a tough one. Have we got one? Yes. Oh, hold that, because this might be going in the second edition of the book.
I was just thinking that, doesn't the law of causation imply that it would be impossible to actually apply that to God, because it would create so many complex webs that it would be almost impossible to pick that apart and make it as simple as X must always imply Y, therefore God must have created the universe. And so you kind of have to concede to the mystery in a way.
Good.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. So the law of causation applies to everything in this universe. Everything. You, historical events, the Battle of Waterloo, you can trace it all the way back to a beginning, a cause. Everything in the universe must explain itself. But if God made the universe, he didn't make it from within the universe. He made it from somewhere outside of the universe, a mysterious place we will never have the capacity to understand. He did not make it from within, so he comes from somewhere else, outside of the universe. That's where he comes from. So who made God? Well, if God made the universe, he made all scientific laws, including the law of causation.
Yes.
But because if he made it and he comes from outside of our universe, God does not come under the law of causation. So if he made our universe, in other words, he made time, space, and matter, it means he comes from beyond time, sense, and matter. And the only way we can describe that is eternity. Which means the only explainable answer is that God is eternal, and he is the only explainable, uncreated thing. God does not come under our laws. And if any human thinks that a human law or a universal law applies to God, they do not understand the concept of God.
I think
but there is mystery.
Yes, and I think that's what you were saying essentially there, Amelia, is if you take the logical argument of something causes something, it doesn't make sense, because at some point you've got to stop. It breaks otherwise, doesn't it? And that is, you have to have a first cause.
That's right, within the universe.
There has to be it has to stop somewhere.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And where you can stump, if you want to attempt to stump an atheist, is that remind them that atheist scientists used to believe, and were happy to believe, that the universe was eternal, and it didn't need explaining. Because if it had always been there, and always would be there, they didn't have the capacity to explain it, they accepted it. God now fits that bill. God is the only eternal thing that does not require, or can have an explanation. He is eternal. That's it. And if you get to that point, it's maybe not as satisfying as you would like it to be, because you'd like it to know that he was born at 3 Acacia Avenue somewhere in Billingham, right? But we can't. There has to be the mystery. We will never know everything. We're not intelligent enough. But if you believe in God, you believe that one day you will know everything.
That's good. That's a good answer. And
does that make sense? Because I know I've explained this to Wendy a few times, and she still doesn't get it. I even did it in the car on the way over.
It's one of those things, because I remember when we used to do youth work, one of the questions the young people would often ask, who made God?
Yeah.
And the answer is nobody.
Mm.
And so you can't answer the question then.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that is the
Yeah.
answer to
Yeah.
the question is nobody.
Nobody.
That there has to be a first cause. There has to be something eternal, or there can be nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's in the chapter of your book about the big questions.
Yeah.
Remind me, what were the other questions in that chapter?
I think probably at that point where I might move on to life, to the creation of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next week.
Yes,
In that case,
yeah.
The thing to round us off, I guess, for our night tonight is this idea that, and this is an idea I am sure you've all heard and have come up against, is that you have science,
Yeah.
and you have religion,
Yeah.
and they are incompatible.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're not. And we wouldn't have science as we know it today without Christianity, because Christianity and science have been inextricably linked. The big explosion, the 17th, 18th, 19th century in scientific discoveries, Newton is probably the one that we would all know, gravity, he was an absolute born-again Christian, Newton. We wouldn't have the science because scientists were generally all Christian. They accepted that God is eternal. They accepted that God must have made everything. And they applied their great minds in an attempt to work out how God did it. So they would look at the universe, they would look at animals, they'd look at creation, and they would try and work out how God made things. After Darwin's time in the late 1850s, science changed, and scientists began looking at the universe and life and attempting to work out and explain how it all made itself by accident. That was not, a leap for science. So science and Christianity particularly have always worked well together. And there was a very, very famous scientist in the late 19th century that opposed the Darwinian theory. And he said that science and Christianity are opposed, just like my forefinger and thumb are opposed. But between them, I can grasp everything. And that is true. The foundation of science, of discovery, is that something created it. Let's work out how that something created it. And that something, of course, is God. So you can thank all of our science, you can thank Christianity for it.
You'll often hear people say now, certainly when you're talking to them about God, oh no, I don't believe in God, I trust science.
I trust science, yeah.
How has that become such an inbuilt response?
I don't know. I think it's a mantra, isn't it, that they've heard and they just repeat. But if you push them on it and you say, well, how can you trust science if there is no God? How can you trust that you are intelligent if there is no God? Because if you are just a mash of chemical reactions and evolution of mutations, how can you trust that you're intelligent? So how can you trust that the science you do is right and correct? Because it has a creator and a designer. It's like looking at a car and saying, science can explain to me how that car was put together, but I reject that car has a designer. Doesn't make any sense. Science can look at an animal or a plant, a tree, a bee, and say, science can explain how this thing works. It can't replicate it, by the way. But atheist scientists reject a designer. That's all they do. Christians just say there's a designer, and that designer is quite obviously God.
And there are, again, you wouldn't think it, but there's plenty of scientists who, even today, are Christians.
Many more than you ever imagine. And in the book, I reference a lot of these Christian scientists, and the vast majority were once atheists. So again, because I was using, atheism as a comparison, I talk a lot about atheist scientists who went on their own journey of discovery and became born-again Christians. And biology, the advances in biology and advances in science generally, are leading many scientists to Christianity, to a creator, because there's nothing else that can explain it. And there's a chap in the book called Dr. Ming Wang from China. He's great. There's a film about him called Sight. He's an eye doctor, eye surgeon, one of the best known eye surgeons in the world. And he was an atheist. And he traveled to America and began practicing and making money and lived the materialist world and everything else. But the more he learned about the eye and the complication of the eye with its 2 million moving parts, 2 million moving parts, each
eye.
Per eye has 2 million moving parts. A fighter jet aeroplane has 4,000, a car has 400. 2 million moving parts. You remove one of those parts, you don't have an eye. It doesn't work. It has 1 million fiber connections from each eye to the brain. And it transmits and it produces, and you see, because all of these parts are in perfect order, and your eye has millions of cells. So he began to wonder about biology and the atheist teachings he'd had in China, that all of this was an accident. He had a conversation one day with a Christian professor at college, at university, and he said to him, look, I'm really struggling believing that this is all an accident. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And the Christian professor said to him, look out the window and what do you see? And he looked out the window and he saw all these cars driving by. He said, I see cars. And he said, do you think it's logical that those cars made themselves by accident out of random pieces of metal? And he said, no, of course not. There's a designer. He said, now what about the eye? And it was that was his moment of suddenly that drop, that 18-inch drop from the mind, the doubts and everything, into the heart, knowing that there is a creator. He's now an evangelical Christian, traveling the world, still as an eye surgeon, but a great advocate for the Christian faith.
Yeah.
Science took him there.
Yes.
And the more we know about science, the more scientists are becoming Christian.
Yes. The complexity of the human eye is something you focus on a little in the book, and it is fascinating that if the eye is a finished product.
That's right.
You can't get to where it is by evolution or by change, because it exists as a finished product. If it's missing a component, it doesn't work.
Absolutely, absolutely. You remove a couple of parts, a couple of cells that don't work, you have a malfunctioning eye. It's like an engine in the car. You take the fan belt off one part, the engine won't function. You drain it of fuel, it won't function. Take the carburetor off, it's not an engine. You're only losing one part. Mm-hmm. You lose one part in the eye, it's not an eye anymore. You know, I use an example in the book of a mousetrap. A mousetrap has 8 moving parts. Remove one part, it's not a mousetrap. Put the parts together in the wrong order, in the wrong place, it's not a mousetrap. It has to be complete before it's a mousetrap. And the eye is exactly the same. And Darwin did say, there was many things he said that prove the theory of evolution to be wrong. He said, if ever we discover that there is an organ in the body that is so supremely complicated that it cannot be explained by gradual mutations over millions of years, then my theory collapses. The eye collapses the theory.
Say that again, that's really
interesting. He said if any organ in the body can be proven to be so complicated that it's impossible for it to evolve through a series of mutations, because that's what evolution is. Mm-hmm. When something is mutated, it's not an improvement at all, it's the exact opposite. He said if something can be proved to be so complicated, then my theory collapses. He didn't know that the eye has 2 million moving parts. He couldn't possibly have known. He didn't know about DNA, for goodness sake. Mm. And he didn't know about the complexity of the brain. The brain is the most complex machine known to man. It's crazy. And so both the eye and the brain are 2 very good examples of things that couldn't evolve through a series of mutations, as is every organ in the heart, in the body. Take the heart. You need the heart, the muscles, you need the veins, you need the blood, and you need the electricity. Did you know that you have a little electric motor in your heart? You make electricity.
Really?
Who designed that? It's a little motor. You have a motor in your heart, Have you got a pacemaker, madam? You're pointing to... Yeah. She's going, I've got one. But yeah, your heart makes electricity. So what came first in the evolutionary process? Electricity, blood, the muscles, or the veins? They could only all come together in one go, instantaneously, for the heart to be a heart.
Because none of them work without the other.
None of them work. None of them work. And no creature can live without a heart. It can't live without DNA. Same thing. You can genuinely drive a horse and carriage through the 1859 theory of evolution, yet we've been taught it as fact for 150 years or more.
It's funny, it's the one thing with the title theory in it that we taught as fact.
Theory. There you have it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We'll open up some questions. We will drive that horse and cart through that theory next time, and we'll enjoy doing that.
Okay, yes.
Any questions on what we've been talking about there? Yes.
Congratulations on the book, David.
Thank you.
I'm still swaying which way I believe at the minute. This is all really out of my comfort zone, even attended tonight, but really interesting, and I love the book.
Well, thank you.
You mentioned when you started all this, you came from an atheist background. How did you cope with the people around you in your professional life, in your social circles? Did their opinions change, and how did you stand up to that kind of switching? David's changed, that conversation, and where do you go from there, really?
I've got to say, it's very difficult, and we will get into the New Testament, but you know, I refer to the New Testament and the Old Testament as being supernatural. It seems crazy me saying this now, but after my research, I truly believe it is. And it predicts many things. And in the New Testament, Jesus predicts that if you become a follower of his, you will suffer. Life's going to be much better in most ways, every way, but there will be suffering, and you will have problems with people. And I've certainly had problems with people, very close family members, and I'm sure many people are nodding. I think you've been through it. They find it very difficult to accept that you have found God. In today's modern world, it's just much trendier to say I'm an atheist. Or you could actually say you were any other religion and be fine. You could say you're a Buddhist. You could say you turn to Islam. You could say all of these things and people will probably give you a round of applause. Once you say you found Jesus, wow, something changes. And I think also, I do talk about this as well, I think that points to the truth of Jesus, because there's a lot of power in that name. There is no doubt about it. And it causes a visceral reaction. I have had violent reactions from people, really bad reactions.
When you say violent,
I don't mean physically attacking, but verbally violent. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would take much to get to a physical attack, to be honest, but absolute rejection. So yes, but I think it's to be expected. A lot of people don't like it. That tells you something as well. It does tell you something.
Can I ask you, if you knew that was going to be the reaction you got before you made the decision, would it have changed your decision? Yeah,
probably in the early days. If I'd known that by becoming a Christian, I would lose friends, I would have difficulties with family, I may even lose work. It's been predicted that I may well lose some of my TV work. I've got to tell you, I couldn't give two hoots if I lose my TV work. This is far more important. But because I know now what I know, I would still go through it. But in the very early days, if someone said to me, if you become a Christian, you might lose work, you might lose friends, family won't like you or think you're an idiot, I'd go, oh, do you know what? I'll just stick to the materialist world. But I'm pleased I didn't know this in the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't. But I assure you, if you do get there, it is worth it. The spiritual side is beyond description.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, Brian.
This one, I know you will answer.
Go on.
Have you got the bibliography for your book? I know as I've read it, I've only got halfway through.
Yeah.
You keep referencing things, but you don't go deep enough.
Okay, well, it wasn't designed to be a book that goes deep. It really wasn't, because I am a layman.
No, what I meant was, I said is so that I could retread where you've gone.
Well,
find out what you found out, you know.
Okay, well, I think I did that because it's a conversational book. It's like we're down the pub having a pint and we're talking about the biggest questions in the world, but making it easy. And I do say very often in the book, Dr. Andrew Huberman says that prayer changes everything. And he's now a Christian. He's a Christian because he studied the brain. He was an atheist. He can only conclude that there is a God. So that's sort of my bibliography, sending you to go and Google Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's a very well-known neuroscientist. So rather than putting a link in going, see page 22 of the scientific manual so-and-so, that's not me. I try and keep it flowing, and I might mention a mathematician, Willie Soon. So you go, well, hang on a minute, he's mentioned this Willie Soon. Does he exist? Is he telling the truth? Go and Google him. Throughout the book, yeah. There is a reference, I don't know whether you've got, right at the back, there is an index. Right at the back, there's an index, so it kind of does help. But it's, yeah, okay, thank you. I'm relying on people using the internet, really. Just, if they find something intriguing, interesting, Google it.
Look into it.
If they don't believe me, Google it, and then come back to the book, dip in, dip out. Can I just ask this gentleman here, you sir, who, you've just got the book. What is it that's holding you back? So you were like me, were you? Were you agnostic?
I went to the Catholic school just out the back of here, secondary school. Had religion pressed on me every day for 5 years.
Yeah.
Left school, went to university, never really give it a second thought. Celebrate Christmas, Easter, that's about it.
Yeah.
Work in technology and healthcare, and
It's okay.
Had quite a strong battle with my wife having spinal cancer, and I fell out of love with whatever was up there because I seen what we went through, life-changing outcomes from that illness at 36 years old, when she's like the most perfect person ever. To be on the receiving end of that kind of, I kicked religion into touch. Wasn't for me anymore. When I seen what's going on in the world, but then I know you touch on that in the book and understand a little bit more about why that happens now.
Yeah.
Still finding my way. And then this book came along at the right time for me, really. Good friends with Ian, and trying to remain composed here. So this is going to sound ridiculous.
So
I don't know. I'm still fighting inside, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit more convinced than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
Wife's still with us, 10 years clear.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And just thankful for the small wins these days. But slowly something has been calling, and I'm trying to figure it out. And here we are.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Coincidence, in about the same week or so that Scott reached out to Evelyn and Scott's daughter Edith are best friends, and Scott one morning reached out to Evelyn to ask what Bible he should buy. It was the same week that you were on here.
Oh, right.
And Scott was unfortunately in Tenerife or somewhere and couldn't come to the thing, so we bought him the book instead.
Oh, brilliant.
Because Scott was asking me questions. I said, I'm really not the person to be answering these questions. You need someone who's a lot cleverer than me. Then you dropped in to the conversation, bought the book for Scott, and Scott devoured it in sort of 2 days.
Oh, wonderful.
And then Luke came back. I was telling Luke what happened. He said, well, we've got some good news for you because we're going to be doing another 6 sessions. So it's really good.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you. I hope you're going to come to the next one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you, Scott, for your honesty there. I realise that's really raw, but and can I encourage you? It's your journey, and just be honest on your journey with it. And I think God will He'll guide you in that. I really believe that.
I do think also, I know we'll touch on this later, but I think for Scott here, the beginning of my journey, I started looking at the Bible, and because I'd never read it before, and I started praying. I don't know whether you pray.
Literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks, tried.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even more bizarre opening up to a room. It's like a band-aid, you just got to rip it off. I have the last 3 weeks since reading this book, and if I'll be honest, I read the Bear Grylls book, The Great Story Ever Told. I read that literally the weekend before.
Right.
So I've tried,
Oh, well, yeah, please do.
Conversations.
Yeah.
That's,
And I think
that's good.
the wonderful thing with prayer is that you can have a conversation with someone about things that you cannot have a conversation with even your wife. It's so open, anything goes. It's very cathartic. And I think if you're brutally honest, and I was with myself, because my daughter said, Dad, you've got to pray. So I was praying. And if it doesn't make you weep, I don't think you're being as honest as you should be. It will make you weep, but it is cathartic. And you do get to a point of believing that you're having a conversation with the creator of the universe. As Larry Sanger, the guy that invented Wikipedia did. He was an atheist philosopher, became disillusioned with life, studied the Bible, took him some time, started praying. After a couple of months, he writes, he realized he was in conversation with the creator of the universe. He's an evangelical Christian, and all the money in the world didn't bring him any happiness, but he's happy. But prayer is so powerful. But it's funny, isn't it? So I found it quite difficult to admit to people that I was praying. Now I pray all the time now. I love it. I can't do without it. It's great. It is great, yeah. But if I said to somebody when I first started this that I meditate every day like they do in the Far East, people would look at me and go, wow, he's a cool guy. He's really cool. But if I tell them the truth that I have a conversation every day, several times with Jesus, they'll think I'm crazy. But it's only prayer that really assists the mind. And I mentioned Dr. Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist who became a Christian, talks in the book. You probably might remember him, but good to look into. He's a great guy. He's on YouTube. He talks about the power of prayer, how it just changes you. So I do hope you'll continue. Yeah. But when you get to a point where you have to pray in public, like I did not very long ago for the very first time, that's difficult. That really, we went to an evening last night, Wend and I, and we all said prayers afterwards. And it's really hard to pray openly in public. You're very good at it and very well practiced, of course.
It started off hard.
It is hard, but yeah, you're in a conversation. I encourage it. Yeah. Thank you.
So next time we'll be doing the next 2 chapters of the book, which covers.
Well, we're absolutely going to get into evolution and the difference between. I was taught that evolution is evolution. There's only one evolution.
Yeah.
Well, again, there's 2 evolutions. There's the theory of evolution, where you were once a fish, you are now a monkey, an elephant, an ant, or a human being. Mm-hmm. Or there's microevolution, which is not a theory. It has been proven. So there are some elements of evolution which are true. So we'll cover those. But these are all within species, just gentle changes within species. We'll talk about fossil records. Correct. And we'll talk about another problem of Darwin's, which is the Cambrian explosion, all of those fossils that point to Darwin being wrong.
So, to be continued.
Yeah.
I tell you what I found really helpful is I read through the 2 chapters in this past week again.
Yes, right.
And so everything was fresh, so questions were bubbling up.
Yeah, good. Well, actually, that would be good to encourage people to buy a book. So if you haven't got a book, buy a book and read the next 2, because I think we'll talk about the Bible as well.
Yeah.
The remarkableness of the Bible is mind-boggling. So we'll get into that as well. Again, all provable stuff.
Excellent.
That point to the Bible being actually supernatural.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. David, thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much.